Your number one wealth building tool is your income.
Cash flow is so important. First of all, we need to make sure we understand what cash flow is. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your total income, which is your total rental income, and it could be if you have other income, but let's just say total rental income is $1,000. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to subtract your expenses, operating expenses. That could be property management, that could be utilities, or what have you. So you have total income, subtract your operating expenses, then subtract your mortgage, and then you're going to get cash flow. So you got A minus B minus C equals cash flow.
Let me be clear about cash flow. It's the only thing I care about, because there is no business without cash flow. You might be able to last for a couple of years, but if you don't have cash flow, you're going to zero.
Financial intelligence is the ability to control cash flow. And that's what they don't teach you at school. They tell you to go to school, get a job. First thing is tax. Most of your money will go out through taxes in your lifetime. And then they tell you to buy a house and a car. A car is an asset. No, a car is a liability. You got insurance, gas, upkeep, and all this. Now, if you buy a taxi car, it could be an asset. It's cash flow. And that's very simply it.
So you're saving $6,000 a year, $500 a month. If you put that money into the bank, which is really only the safe way, $6,000 a year, in a year you'll have $6,060. Right?
Sure.
You're just not ever going to
If that.
F that, right? And the point being is you're never going to improve your place in life.
How can you have income and still no cash flow?
Well, here's how I look at it, right? Income is how much you make.
Yep.
Okay, that's what most of us are taught. And so, we're looking up careers. It's like, well, how much did this make? How much did this career make? How much did this make? When we get in business, how much does a person make? Well, cash flow is not just how much you make, but it's how long does it last when you get it.
Come on, man.
So let's say you like, okay, Justin makes $1 million a year, man, that's great. But then you find out my expenses are $2 million. You like, well, my brother look good, but he's broke. His cash flow is only good for 6 months.
University degrees are 3 to 4x more expensive. Oh, by the way, so is housing. Wait a second, inflation is at a degree in which my dollar today is worth even substantially less than even 5 years ago. Can't live, I can't eat, groceries more expensive, and that's real, actually.
First mistake, most people live paycheck to paycheck, aren't tracking their expenses and their spending. They have no idea what's going in and out of their bank account. They have no idea what they're spending. The reason why number one happens is they don't have a monthly cash flow plan or a budget. They are not being intentional with their spending, nor do they have good short-term or long-term goals and a budget or a plan on how to reach those.
How you take out a loan to throw yourself a birthday party? You better go down there and get about 5 or 6 dozen crabs and some shrimp and say, here you go. Who takes out a loan to throw themselves a birthday party unless you're what? Trying to impress the party goers.
Imagine being me. Your credit card payment is due today. The minimum payment that you can make is $165. There's only $100 in your personal checking account. You don't have a personal savings account right now. You have to go to your business bank account to withdraw money to make your minimum credit card payment, and you're 30 years old and still believing that you're going to be the person who creates generational wealth for you and your family.
Boy, man, America, we gotta tighten up. Look, CNBC posted this article. U.S. credit card debt stands at a record of nearly $1 trillion. I don't even know how many zeros that is. Let's work on that credit card debt, man. Gotta get that paid off.
If you use your credit cards, you do not want to be rich.
400 wealthiest people in North America, when surveyed, asked what's the way to build wealth? What's the number one way to build wealth? 75% of wealthy people, not your broke brother-in-law with an opinion, but wealthy people say, get out of debt and stay out of debt.
Yep.
Because it gives you power over your largest wealth building tool, which is your income.
What happens to the average lottery winner?
They're in a worse place afterwards.
Within 5 years.
Yeah.
We're talking about multiplied millions of dollars, fam. And within 5 years, 5 to 7 years, they're back to being broke. Why? Because that money didn't fix that mind. You get the mindset, then you can have the money. But if you get the money, you don't have the mindset, you're going to be broke again.
Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power.
That's right.
So you might have some knowledge of money, but if you don't apply that knowledge, it's not going to
do anything for you. You're just going to be a smart person.
You're either going to be influenced by the environment, by the things you're taking into your ears, to your eyes, the people around you, or you're going to do the influencing. You're going to influence yourself and influence others. That's what the media does. It primes us. Your environment primes you also. How your home is, how your job is, right? The places that you stay, it primes you for whatever it is that you are going to feel. So it's important that we learn how to prime ourselves. It's important that we learn how to have that morning routine, how to put ourselves in a position where we can handle whatever the day brings us. All right, what's up, everybody? Happy Monday, January 20th. I'm Chris Muzan, one of your hosts here tonight for our Financial Foundations Bootcamp. I appreciate everyone that's here in the Zoom with us, also live on Facebook. Feel free, y'all. This is going to be a time where we get a chance to dive into money. The reason why we do this is because we want to make sure you are financially set for 2025. We know that there's a ton of information out there around money. There's a ton of resources that people have, but at the end of the day, is it the right information and the right resources for you? That's why we come here at United Agency to really give you that financial guidance. Again, we get a chance to sit down with people every single day and educate them on how money works, but specifically crafting a financial plan for them and their families to get to the life that they want. And we all know that it's a brand new year. We're 20 days into the year. Everybody always has some type of financial goals and some type of health goals or other things that they try to get to. Tonight, we're going to dive into the financial side of things because we want to be able to, again, help you get to that place where your foundation is solid so you can continue to build on top of it. We got a really special guest coming in later on tonight that, again, I want you to stick around for. The reason why we do this is because we want to get you the right information so you can make the right decisions in your financial life. But there's going to be some really good things happening. Hey, invite some people on. Share this on Facebook. If you see the live on Facebook, go ahead and share that with somebody. Let it pop up in their feed because at the end of the day, we're looking for the people looking for us. We're not here to convince you to save money. We're not here to convince you to get out of debt. We're not here to even convince you that you probably need to make some more money. But if you are in that place where you know you need to get out of debt, or you know you want to save some more money, or you really just want to have your financial life change in 2025, then you're the right person for this tonight. Feel free to send it to a friend, send it to a family member, somebody that you know, love, and care about, because they are definitely going to be able to benefit from this tonight. Let's dive in. We got a lot of work to do, ladies and gentlemen. This is our boot camp. We're doing this over a 3-day period. We have a 3-day window that we are going to dive into all of the things in finance. I'm going to start talking pretty quickly because I really want us to get through the information and get a chance to bring on our special guest in a little bit. But again, over these next 3 days, these are the things that we're going to go over. We're diving into your cash flow strategies and some of the debt things that you might be dealing with. Day 2, tomorrow night, we're coming back in to do savings, short-term savings, long-term savings, and investing strategies, things around midterm investing. We're going to talk life insurance and retirement planning. And then on our final day, we're going to be talking about tax optimization. We're going to bring on Atia, who's a CPA. We're going to get a chance to, again, ask questions and really dive into some of these foundational things. Also, on that 3rd day, we're going to dive into some estate planning things. People have conversations and questions around wills and trusts. That's coming up on the 3rd day. But again, we have a ton of information that we want to be able to get to you guys today. So stick around. If you are following us here at United Agency, my wife and I been here in business now going on 12 years. We've had the privilege of being able to lift up the hood under people's financial life, whether you're 18 years old or whether you're 80 years old, and really put together a solid financial plan for you. the resources that we have and the information that we have is not just for the wealthy, it's for all of us. It's for middle America, people like you and I, hardworking families that really just want to get ahead financially and do some better things for their children or their future generations. Feel free to follow us on any of these other platforms, whether it's over on Instagram. We got TikTok back, right? So maybe go over there. But again, LinkedIn, our website, all of those things are where you can find us. This is the overview of what we talk about. Those of you that are familiar with us here know that we talk about these 6 things as your financial foundation. And that's what this entire boot camp is going to cover over these 3-day periods, right? We're going to dive into cash flow, savings, debt, proper protection, building wealth, and preserving the wealth. But tonight specifically, we're highlighting these 2 categories. We are talking cash flow and we are talking debt management. All right. Those are the 2 things that we're diving into tonight. So again, feel free to share this with somebody that you know needs to hear this or has had some questions around these topics. Hey, here's a question for you. Do you want your next 5 years to look like your last 5 years financially? You don't have to put that in the chat, right? You don't have to answer that out loud. I know I've been, right? I can feel your energy, Facebook and in the Zoom. I can feel your energy when I say that question, when I ask you that question. So you don't have to respond, but just think, do you want your next 5 years financially? Whatever you did in the last 5 years, is that what you want your next 5 years to look like? From a savings standpoint, from a debt standpoint, from a fulfillment standpoint, from a discretionary income standpoint. Whatever you did the last 5, do you want it to be the next 5? If the answer is no, then that means we have to do some things differently, right, ladies and gentlemen? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So if you've been doing the same things in your financial life, guess what? You're going to get the same results in your financial life. So if we want our next 5 years of our finances and our financial life to change, ladies and gentlemen, we got to do some things differently. That's what we're going to do tonight. Hey, I know I'm not your teacher, right? Some of you haven't been in school for a very long time. Maybe you hated school, but let me give you a couple tips for success tonight while you're here. Hey, take some notes. I know you're catching this on Zoom. I know there's a national championship football game going on, right? There's a bunch of stuff happening, but take some time, take some notes. The information we're going to talk about tonight can completely change your life, but only if you let it. Right? Your financial life can change very quickly, but you have to be intentional about it. So in your home, in your household, eliminate the distractions. Maybe this is the time to turn down the TV a little bit. Maybe this is the time to, right, put the kids away so that you can get the information you need. If you're not intentional about it, you're going to miss it. Right? You're going to miss it. And so you got to make sure that you're paying attention. Engage with us in the chat. If you're here on Facebook, engage with us in the chat. If you're here with us in Zoom, engage in the chat. And please ask questions, right? The more questions you ask, the better it is for others to learn. I promise you, the question that you have, other people have as well. So make sure you ask some questions, all right? Cool. Let's get ready to rock and roll, y'all. All right, let's talk cash flow. Let's talk cash flow really quickly. Cash flow is what comes in and what goes out. If you were just on and you just got a chance to see a couple of those videos that we're playing, Dave Ramsey, even we might like our Uncle Dave, you might not like your Uncle Dave, it doesn't really matter. He makes some solid points, right? And he says the number one driver of, right, your financial life is your income. The number one driver of your financial life is your income. A lot of times we think we can make little money and then take that little money and turn it into really big money. That's not the way that it works financially, ladies and gentlemen. It's very tough to take a little bit of money that you have coming in and try to turn that into hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. So the biggest driver in your financial life is always going to be your income. So do you have a high-paying job? Do you have a high-paying job? That is something that can drive your income. When your income gets to $150, $170, $200, $250,000 a year at your job, even though you're on a W-2 and you're going to pay some taxes on that, at least you have the ability to drive some more of your financial life because you got more income coming in. Maybe you're the person that has multiple streams of income. We hear it a lot. We don't always take that advice, but yes, you should have multiple streams, ways to make additional income in your life. Maybe you have a full-time job. Maybe you do something on the side that brings you in an extra $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month. Great. That's how it makes up your income. What if you're just a full entrepreneur? Maybe you want to be an entrepreneur. You guys know here at United, we talk a ton about that entrepreneur mindset. If it is to be, it's up to me. You got to go make things happen for you and your family. But at the end of the day, we have to focus on our income. This is often, I heard it said a different way, right? 3 ways that you got to pay attention to your money. 3 things you got to get good at with your money. First, you got to learn how to earn it. Then you got to learn how to save it. Then you got to learn how to invest it. That's the proper format. First, you got to learn how to earn it. Then learn how to keep it, right? How to store it, not just spend all of it. Then once you learn how to keep some of it, then you got to learn how to invest it, how to allow it to grow for you. Most people have not figured out how to earn all the money they need to. Most people have not figured out how to make all of the money. That's step 1. Do you know how to earn it? Your life would be completely different if you just had an extra $4,000 a month. It doesn't take millions. It doesn't take hundreds of thousands. It takes a few extra $1,000s a month to completely change your financial life. The question is, how much are you paying attention to this? How much are you thinking about how you bring in, how you earn more money? It's the number one thing you got to focus on when it comes to your cash flow, ladies and gentlemen. There was an article out last year that showed the income a family of 4 needs to live comfortably in the United States. Comfortably in the United States, right? It says comfortable is defined as the income needed to cover a 50-30-20 budget. So 50% going to necessities, 30% for discretionary spending, and 20% into savings. That's what they would classify as comfortable. Drop some numbers in the chat if you're paying attention. How much do you think the average, right, household of 4 needs in income to live comfortably? Every state's a little bit different. Depends on what state you're in. But let's say we're in Pennsylvania, or you're in Florida, or you're in Ohio, or you're in California. Drop some guesses in the chat. If you're on Facebook, drop some guesses. What do you think the household income is needed for an average family of 4 to live comfortably? I want to hear some guesses. What do you think? Average family of 4 to live comfortably here in the United States. What do you think those numbers look like? What could that be? What could that be? We got 189,000. That's a good guess. We got 250,000. Really good guess. 300,000 annually. Got it. What other guesses? 150 or 50? Is that 150,000 a month or 15,000 a month? Yeah, 15,000 a month in California. Okay, got it. 200,000 annually. Got it. So we're dropping some numbers. Here's the numbers all across the country, ladies and gentlemen. California, $277,000 is the average. That is what a family of 4 needs to live comfortably. 50% going to bills, 20% going into savings, 30% going into the discretionary things. 277,000 in California, where we are in Pennsylvania, 230,000. 230,000. New York is 279,000. Texas, 201,000. Hey, how is your income lining up with these numbers? How's your income lining up with the averages, with what's needed to live comfortably? By the way, most likely these numbers are going to keep going up. We're going to keep needing more money in order to live comfortably. So you got to know that income, ladies and gentlemen, is the number one driver in your financial life. So maybe before we get into the expense side of cash flow, maybe we should be brainstorming some ideas of how we go off and make some more money. Maybe we need to brainstorm some ideas of how we switch our careers and get into a career that has the horsepower to get us to where we want to go. Maybe we start to, give ourselves some room to dabble in different industries, to test some things out, to get around the industries that are up and coming. We have to know these things in order to impact these things. That's why I'm giving you this information. So we got to focus on that income side of things, ladies and gentlemen. It's incredibly important. Then we get to this other side, which is the expense side of things. The expense side of things. Most of us know what our fixed expenses are. We talk about this a bunch. Your fixed expenses are the things that stay the same basically every single month. You know what your rent or your mortgage is. You know what your car insurance is. You know what your car payment is. You even know what your little subscriptions are, or your phone bill or your cable, or whatever the things are that come in the same every single month. That's where most people, those are things that most people think about when it comes to their expenses, right? It's the fixed side. What we encourage you to do is to get just as knowledgeable on the variable side. Just as knowledgeable on the side where it's not the same every month. And we're going to touch on some of this stuff as we go into the boot camp a little bit later, right? But do you know exactly where your money is going? I know you might think it's just the bills. I know, we get this. You think it's just going to all of those things, but typically it's not. It's not just going to your bills. It's going to the miscellaneous, the variable things. How much did you spend on food, on DoorDash? How much did you spend on Amazon or Target or Walmart or wherever you go shopping? What about any of the other places or that you spend money? What if you have some children? If you have kids, you know how much money they take, right? Sometimes I ask people the question, like, what's your largest lifetime expense going to be? And you know what a lot of parents answer? My kids. That's what they say. My kids are my largest lifetime expense, which is very true. Here's the question. Do you know how much money goes to your kids, though? Do you know how much goes to their activities? Do you know how much goes to when they need food, or when they're like, hey, Ma, I just need $20, and you just give it to them? Do you know how much goes there? Because that's a form of your expenses also. These are the things that we encourage you to pay attention to when you want to fix the expense side of things. So a lot of times we hear of the B word, right? You guys know the B word. Sometimes it's a little nasty word here in financial services. Sometimes it's a little nasty word when you're dealing with your finances. But we talk about it, and then you hear people say all the time, right? Well, I can't stick to a budget. Budgeting. I know I'm supposed to budget. I get it, right? I'm supposed to. Here's a question for all of you. Do you actually write down where your money goes? Do you take the time every other week or every month to sit down, take an hour to 2 hours out of your day, out of your week? By the way, you get 168 hours in your week. If you tell me you don't have 1 hour for a week for your money, or 2 hours a week for your money, it means this isn't important to you. It's okay. You just got to be real with where you are and understand if you're not willing to give it time, it's not really important. So if it is important to you, you give it time. Anything that's important to us, we give time to, ladies and gentlemen. So if you don't sit down to write out your money, is it because you feel like you don't have the time? Because you definitely do. Or maybe it's we just don't believe that this works. Maybe you know you should budget, but you don't really know how to, or maybe it's never worked for you in the past. Not quite sure. But let's dive into how to do this successfully, because there's a lot of benefits to budgeting. Budgeting helps you understand your cash flow. I know I hear you right now, right? I say I get energy from all of you, right? So I hear right now, oh, I have my budget in my head. I know some of you say that. I have it in my head. I know exactly what I spend. I know exactly where my money goes. Got it. But yet if we have some cash flow issues, maybe you don't know as much as you think. I have to challenge you on that. So budgeting, writing it out, actually helps you understand your cash flow. It helps you understand where your money's going. It helps you remove financial stress. When we sit down and coach people one-on-one, and the number one thing they say is, hey, you know what? I haven't taken a look at my money. I don't know where my money's going. It's kind of that out of sight, out of mind. And that's where we get the anxieties around money. That's where we start to feel like, man, I don't know if I'll ever get over this hump. Man, the ship's kind of sinking and I don't really know what to do. Well, it's maybe because we haven't looked at our money. So it'll remove financial stress just by you paying attention to it. You'll learn your spending habits. My wife always says, small holes sink great ships. It's never the big things in your financial life. It's the small things. It's the $12 here, the $22 there, the $14 there, the $47 there. That adds up over time. That becomes small leaks in your boat. So when you budget, you get to plug up those small leaks and you get to learn your spending habits. Budgeting helps you stay on the same page for those of you that are married or have a significant other. Hey, by putting stuff down on paper, you guys get to stay on the same page. Here's where the money's going, babe. Hey, hun, let's take a look at this. This is what we did last month. This is what we plan on doing this month. Hey, 2 big causes for divorce. Number 1 is finances, right? And then infidelity, or right, anything on that side. But at the end of the day, money will help you guys stay together in that relationship by you understanding how to budget. You'll save more money. You'll get out of debt or avoid debt. You'll achieve your financial goals. Most importantly, you'll take control of your financial future. That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to help you take control of your financial future. All right? If you're living paycheck to paycheck, budgeting is a must. But let me teach you how to do it, because budgeting is technically the second step. The first step is tracking. So here's what we always talk about on this side. Step 1 is tracking your money. Before you can go off and do a budget, before you say, hey, a budget's never really worked for me, it's because maybe we don't know our numbers. Here's how we explain it. Budgeting is a forecast. Budgeting is you looking forward in the future. Hey, where do I plan my money to go in February of this year? That would be a budget. February has not yet come. The money has not yet hit your bank account. You are planning in the future where you would like to spend that money. Before you can plan in the future where you would like to spend that money, you've got to look back to understand where you have spent money. So you have to track your money first. You have to know your current numbers. If you don't know your current numbers with confidence, and I mean not just your bills, your variable expenses. How much did you spend on gas? How much did you give to your children? How much went to the car? How much went to DoorDash, right? All those things. You got to do that first. Here's how you do it. You got to review your last month's statements. You got to go take a look, right? You got to go take a look at what you have been doing. If you've used your card, if you've swiped your debit card, you have a record of your money, okay? You have a record of your money. So you got to go back and look at last month and see right down where everything went. If you do that for 3 months in a row, ladies and gentlemen, guess what you're going to see? You're going to see your habits. Money is controlled by our habits. It's not something outside of you that's controlling your money. It's you and the way you think and your habits, what you find important, what you value. That is where your money's going. So if you don't know, this is what you have to do in order to get to understanding what your habits are. You find out 3 months, you look at those last 3 months, you look at, November, December, and January this year, like, man, on average, I spend about $700 on food. You're going to start to see patterns of your own financial decisions. Patterns. That's what's happened. The reason why you're here, I opened up with a question, y'all. I said, hey, do you want your next 5 years to look like your last 5 years? If you answer no to that, that means we have to change our habits. We have to change our patterns. Well, you can't change something you don't know. So if you don't know your habits, if you don't know your emotions, if you don't know that you shop when you're overwhelmed, if you don't know that you choose to eat out more when, right, you're depressed, if you don't understand your habits, you're never going to be able to understand your money. We're not going to be able to get you to where you need to go. So you got to go back and take a look at it. Everything that you swiped on that card, you have a record of. That's a good thing. If you're spending a lot of cash, let's try to stop that moving forward, because we need a record of the money. If you're a big cash spender, and I know there's different, right, thought processes behind all of these things, but if you've been conditioned to spend a lot in cash, and I asked you, hey, where did you spend your cash back in September of last year? Show me where all your money went. You're not going to have any idea. That's the problem. While you are trying to fix your financial life and build your foundation, you got to make sure you have a record of that money. Once you get really good, sure, maybe there's some opportunities for you to use cash down the line. But in general, we're going to live in a digital society, so you got to learn how to do that. Listen, you cannot create or stick to a budget that's unrealistic. You can't do it. Once you know your numbers, then we can move on to budgeting, which is step 2, right? Step 2 is creating a spending plan for both your fixed expenses and your variable expenses, but most importantly for your variable expenses. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to be real with yourself. Out of all the years that my wife and I have been doing this, the number one thing we see when we sit down with people is that you're just not real with yourself. You're not real with where you actually are. You're not honest. So you really got to look at these things: food, entertainment, gas, shopping, children expenses, vices. Man, if you're gambling, right? If you have vices, no judgment, no judgment. We all have things, but if you want to get better with your money, you got to know exactly how much goes to that vice. How much do you spend, right? Online betting and sports betting every week. You got to tally that up. You have to tally that up. You can't just say, that's my play money. You don't have play money if you're trying to increase your cash flow, if you're trying to increase your discretionary income. We got to pay attention to that. So once you create a spending plan, you got to start to track your spending, whatever those areas are. You see, a budget does not have to be you tracking all of your expenses. It might just be the 3 or 4 areas that you need to work on. That's all. You just need to track the 3 or 4 areas that you need to work on to save yourself that extra few $100s from going out of your financial boat, from leaking out of your financial boat. So you got to keep a running tally. Maybe yours is food and shopping. Maybe those are the only 2 areas that you got to pay attention to. And if you pay attention to them every week, you check in on your bank statement, you check in your online banking. Hey, how much have I spent so far in my food? Okay, my budget was 600 because I knew I used to spend 800. Now I go down to 600. So that means I have 150 bucks a week. Okay, week 1, how much have I spent so far? Okay, I'm at 140. Okay, good. I'm on pace. Then week 2 comes, man, I'm at 350. All right, I got to cut back a little bit. Now you're monitoring just the 1 or 2 or 3 areas that are important to you and adjust your spending habits accordingly. The key, stay consistent in doing that. Once we start that process, keep doing that process. It's kind of like therapy. Once you start therapy, once you start going to it, you should keep going. Yes, you're going to get better, but it was the thing that helped you, so you probably want to keep doing it. That's the same thing on this side. We should not start and stop understanding about our money, especially if we're trying to get to a life where we're financially independent. You have all the money that you need. You're out of debt, right? You're able to travel the world, whatever your goals are. We should never stop looking at our money, ladies and gentlemen. That's what comes in and what goes out. How to stay on track, really quick. How to stay on track. Ask yourself these financial questions before making purchases. This is how you impact your cash flow. This is how you impact it. You got to ask yourself, is this a need or is this a want? Is this something that I actually need right now? Otherwise, I can't live. Or is this just something that I want and I could probably push this off another week, another 2 weeks, another month, another 2 months? That should be in your mind when you're making decisions on spending. How can I find this cheaper? How can I negotiate this? Yes, I might want this right now, but man, if I waited 3 weeks, it might go on sale and then I can get it. These are the questions you have to ask yourself if you're trying to keep your expenses low. Number 2, learn to control your emotions. I said this, money's run by our habits. Well, money's also controlled by our emotions. Warren Buffett says if you can't control your emotions, you can't control your money. If you can't control your emotions, you can't control your money. You want to know why your money's up and down? It's because your emotions are up and down, right? You want to understand why things, right, are sometimes here and sometimes here? Because that's kind of how we are. That's kind of how you are. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. The key is understanding what are your spending habits and your triggers when you're up and down. So you got to become aware of your emotional triggers that cause you to spend money. The mindset that you have around money, right? The emotional triggers. Like I said earlier, when you're depressed, you probably have something you go to. Amazon has made it very easy for us to one click and buy something. Well, when do you do your scrolling and buying stuff? Is it late night when you're kind of tired and fatigued and the world's kind of run you down? So this is like a little jolt for you. This is a little dopamine hit just to be able to press that button. Are you aware that's what's happening? Or you think it's just because you really want things and you have a shopping problem? I would say it's probably because we haven't identified what emotions are happening when we're going to spend money. These are things you got to pay attention to, ladies and gentlemen, to stay on track with getting your cash flow in order. You got to avoid attaching negative emotions. This is something we share with all the people that we coach. Hey, no shame, no judgment, no guilt, no overwhelm, no anxiety around money. Money is an energy. Money is an energy, right? The more that you attach good, positive emotions to it, know that the money is in abundance. It is not scarce. The more that we do that, the more that you'll see it in your life, the more that you'll have it in your life, the more that we attach negative emotions to it, shame, guilt. Oh, I can't believe I did this. I'm so bad with money. Why is this happening? Right? If we attach those, it's likely you're not going to get better. We can't attach negative things to it and expect positive outcomes. So we got to pay attention to that. Here's something I always say, give yourself some grace. If you're over budget in a month, it's okay. Give yourself some grace, but get right back on track. Give yourself some grace. Hey, you're just trying. Many of you, 20, 30, 40, 50 years worth of habits got you to this point where you're sitting on the Zoom with us. Well, it's not going to take a month or 2 months to get you out of those habits. It might take you a few years with the right coaching, with the right intentions on it, but it didn't take you overnight just to create them. So you got to give yourself some grace when you are getting yourself back on track. All right? But that's how you stay on track. Here's the biggest one. And before we dive into our guest, right? Create a compelling long-term vision for your future. This is something we share with people all the time. You need to create a compelling long-term vision for your future financially. Scripturally, ladies and gentlemen, it says where there's no vision, people cast off restraint. Other translations says where there's no vision, people perish, right? But literally, where there's no vision, people cast off restraint. So think of that with your money. If you don't have a vision for where your money is going, what you want to do with money, how much does it really take to retire? How much does it really take to get to your financial independence number? How much do you need coming in to be comfortable or whatever place you want to be? If you have no vision for your money, it's very easy in the short term to cast off restraint, to say, you know what, I deserve those shoes. I deserve this trip right now. I deserve to get this meal or whatever it is, because I really have no vision. I don't know what the future holds with money. I don't know what my future holds. But if you can create a compelling long-term vision for your financial life, that's when you start doing the right things with money. If you know you need $1.6 million set aside in an account that gets you 4%, so you can take out 4% interest and live off of the interest, you now have a vision of what you need that money for. So when someone tries to get $1,000 from you and you have that vision, you might think of it differently. You might be like, I don't know if that's going to be the best place for it because I know I got to get to 1.6. Vision, ladies and gentlemen. If you ever hear someone say, or any of you have said, I have a spending problem, I would challenge you. Maybe you don't have a spending problem. Maybe you have a vision problem. Maybe you don't have a spending problem. Maybe you just got a vision problem. Maybe you don't really know what you want to do with the money. You don't know what you want to get up ahead. So it's easy to spend. These are things to pay attention to stay on track for your financial life, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, stick around to the end of this. The end of this, we're going to give you some free cash flow resources at the end of the Zoom. So stick around, right? We got some things that are going to help you with the things I just talked about. But for now, I want to dive in to the debt side of things. Here's a quick question before I introduce our special guest for the night. This was a headline from last year. It says nearly 1 in 4 Americans with debt are putting less money towards their credit card payments, right? So we got debt, and now people are putting less towards their debts, like not able to pay them off as fast. That chart you see down there on the bottom is consumer debt. It's the consumer debt line. It's how much our consumer debt has grown over the past couple years. Anybody want to take a guess? I mean, you kind of see it on the graph, but anybody want to take a guess what the current number of consumer debt is right now in America? That's credit cards, personal loans, mortgages, medical bills, student loans, consumer debt. Anybody want to take a guess? Drop it in the chat if you got a number. If you got a number of total American consumer debt right now, 2025, do you know what it is? Again, giving it away a little bit on the screen. So Here's the answer. $17.94 trillion. You, I, all of the 330 million Americans that are here, between car loans, student loans, mortgages, credit cards, and other debts, right, that we call unsecured debts, 17.94 trillion, almost $18 trillion. I don't know where you guys think you're going to get the money from. I don't know where people think they're going to get the money to be able to pay back $18 trillion worth of debt. But we need some solutions. We need some solutions. One of the solutions, bring on our guest, Miss Adrienne Hines. She is a bankruptcy attorney. And a lot of times we don't have these conversations. We don't get a chance to fully talk about, hey, what are our options if we're up to our eyelids in debt? We're just like, I don't know what to do. And we hear of this bankruptcy side and we're like, I don't know if that's what I should do. I heard really bad things about it. Should this be the way that I go? I'm not sure. Well, I wanted to bring on an expert tonight to really talk to us about that side, on the debt side of things, on the bankruptcy side. Quick story before I let you go, Adrienne. Very interesting how we get to this place. Me and my wife, we're out of Pennsylvania. I know you're out of Ohio, right? For those of you that aren't familiar, Adrienne does a ton of content, right? So that's how most people get introduced to her. She's live on TikTok. I think I saw her live on TikTok maybe 7, 8, 9 times, decided to engage a bit, always has some great information. We had a dinner guest. We had some friends of ours over, and we're having a conversation around finances and all these things. And your name happened to come up outside, right? Like we had never talked about this at all. And I was like, how did you know her? And they were like, I saw her on TikTok and we're trying to connect. And I'm like, I saw her on TikTok. We're trying to connect too. And so like just the fact that the content that you do and the information that you provide is super powerful and beneficial to people. That's why I wanted to have you on. So Adrienne, I appreciate you jumping on tonight to help us out with this bankruptcy conversation.
I really appreciate you having me on, and I give all of the people who are participating right now, who are watching, who are live streaming, I give them all a lot of credit for sticking around, because I know that the real scary B word isn't just budgeting, but also bankruptcy. I know it's a very scary word and I know it's a scary concept. So I really appreciate that people are stopping by and sticking around. They're willing to just listen to what it is I know about this. And you guys can then turn around and take this information for what it's worth and then figure out if it's something that you might be able to utilize. And if not you, we all have friends and family who are struggling. So knowing more about this is very helpful.
Very true. Very true. And let's just dive right in. Give the people that aren't familiar with you a quick introduction, how you got into this bankruptcy space, kind of where your passion lies in this field.
Thank you so much. So my name is Adrienne Hines, and I am a lawyer in Northwest Ohio near the Toledo area. And I was just kind of a regular hometown kind of lawyer most of my career. And along the way, I started doing some bankruptcy work just because I was in a big firm. I did a lot of areas of law. I ended up being a very highly specialized workers' compensation attorney in the state of Ohio. But the workers' comp system in our state is quite unsafe. And if somebody gets hurt, their employer can contest it. And it can be oftentimes months while we're fighting about it before somebody's income is reinstated. And so that oftentimes caused a tremendous amount of financial insecurity for a lot of my clients. So I moved into the bankruptcy space along with my original practice. And I began to understand how important bankruptcy really is in the American economy. I understand why it exists. I understand why it is safe and legal. And I genuinely believe that not everybody who needs it is aware that it is here to help them. And so I've kind of gone off on a crusade, Chris, to try to make people understand what it is, why it helps, when it helps, and how they can utilize bankruptcy to actually move through difficult times in their life and to get to the other side so that they can build wealth. I want to do all of the things that you want to do. I want my clients and my followers all to be able to start that business and to live the American dream that they envision. And I think a lot of people just don't realize that it's possible to do that through bankruptcy if it's the right situation. So I am on social media, as you say. I'm on TikTok. Very, very grateful that it's still around. I'm on all the socials though, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and you can find me at The Ladylike Lawyer. So if you're looking up The Ladylike Lawyer, you're probably going to find me, and you're going to find probably 3,000 videos that I've made on the subject of bankruptcy, really trying to get people more comfortable with it so that they'll simply listen. Because like you said, we are very shameful about our bad habits or about the situations that we find ourselves in. And I do know as a bankruptcy lawyer that there are a lot of reasons why people end up struggling financially. And one of them is a fundamental misunderstanding about how finances work. But there are really, truly difficult things that happen to people's lives that take them back a few notches, and it's hard to come back from that. And so bankruptcy is really here to help in certain situations. So,
Sure.
yeah.
I love that. And thank you. And for everybody that's listening, please go give her a follow, right? Please follow the content. It's always good to be educated. That's why we do what we do, is just to educate you for all of your options. And some of the things you said, Adrienne, like just as far as this is a safe way, right, to really get to building wealth. These aren't things that even I grew up with or thought about, right? I always looked at bankruptcy as being one of the worst things you could ever do, right?
Right.
So and the reason why you're on is because you do have this crusade, and we love crusaders and people that believe in what they're doing. So let's dive right in, give the people some value. Like what are the pros and cons, I guess, of filing bankruptcy? I know that's a very broad question, but dive in and just kind of talk some of the pros and cons.
Yeah, so a lot of people, let's talk about what bankruptcy is at its very core initially. Bankruptcy is a legal way, it's actually mentioned in our United States Constitution, but it is a legal way to manage a very specific kind of debt. And bankruptcy is designed to manage mostly general unsecured non-priority debt. So that's going to be your credit cards, medical bills, personal loans, payday loans, all of that stuff that's not a priority. Okay. And a priority is going to be taxes, child support, alimony, student loans are still priorities. So these types of debts that we know are probably never going to go away, right? We know we're going to have to deal with those. Bankruptcy doesn't allow you to screw over your children. You got to pay child support, and you still have to pay your taxes. And right now you still got to pay your student loans. So it's not that kind of debt, because that's generally seen as a very important debt. And when you have a house or a car, if you have a loan on those things, most of the time that loan is what we call secured, right? The lender is keeping the title to your car while you're paying for it. And if you don't pay for it, they can take your car. So that's secured debt. So priority, unsecured, non-priority, unsecured debt is what we deal with in bankruptcy. So it's not a priority, and it's not a car loan or a mortgage tied to that thing, then everything else is the type of debt that we're usually looking at to go away. And the reason bankruptcy exists to get rid of that kind of debt is because it is the most dangerous, the most predatory, the most unregulated, and it is the type of debt that is most manipulative in the way that we find ourselves in it. So while we do have difficulties with impulse control, and we may have depression and anxiety that drives us to spend, those are all truthful statements. But we are also living in an economy that requires us to spend money in order for the economy to keep going. And an economy that's systematically taken away a lot of the protections that used to be in place for us against these lenders. So bankruptcy is designed very specifically to get rid of the most dangerous predatory type of debt, which is going to be credit cards, medical bills, loans, payday loans, the old Verizon contract and you're being sued, or, the old apartment, all that stuff that you have nothing to show for it. You can't give them back anything in order to get out of the debt. That's the type of debt that goes away. What are the pros and cons of getting rid of that kind of debt? They're almost all pros, because as we continue to go through this, the biggest reason to avoid bankruptcy is because of your self-hatred or the belief that you are a bad person for looking at this as an option. So really the biggest problem with bankruptcy is the stigma and the belief that we have that it is going to ruin our lives, when in fact bankruptcy is designed to build wealth. It is designed to build wealth. And that's why financial people are really starting to pay attention to what I'm having to say, because if we can get you through your debt as quickly as humanly possible, that is where you are able to start to build the business. That's where you're able to start to open up and become the person that you truly want to be. And so bankruptcy actually exists so that we can shed this dangerous unsecured debt safely while protecting the 401ks that we have right now, to the extent that we have them, and usually while protecting the equity in our home. Bankruptcy is designed to allow us to get rid of this debt while protecting those things, the equity in our home usually, and all of our retirement. So what most people don't realize is bankruptcy is such a good option that it is the second option everyone should consider if they have unmanageable debt and they are unable to budget their way out of it in 3 years or less. And then it's 3 years or less. If you can't get out of all of that debt that we're talking about, that credit cards, that medical bills, that personal loans, if you can't budget your way out, and that is the first thing that you should try to do, if you can't do that in 3 years or less, you have to do something extraordinary, because you have to get back in the game. You have to get back in so you can robustly contribute to your retirement, so you can start that business, so you can qualify for the business loans, quickly. Bankruptcy is what allows you to do all those things, because like you said, you can't spend the next 20 years doing what you've done in the last 20 years if it hasn't worked. So time is money, and the sooner we get through it, the better. And most people don't realize that we got to do this very, very quickly. And doing so is what helps get you back into the game. So the pros are that you get to shed unnecessary, dangerous debt, and you get to clear out your income and your flow, right? This changes completely the flow of your income, and now puts you in a position to be able to direct your resources to growing a business.
That's huge. That's huge. I don't think, again, and I'm so glad you can come on and share this information, because I don't think people really understand that this is an option that can quickly get them through their debt issues with what you're saying, right? Kind of minimal cons to this, right? There's minimal downsides, with the exception of, again, how we feel about saying that we have to file bankruptcy, right? And I think that's huge, because also one of the things we talk about on the financial side is all the time that we're typically fearful of things we're undereducated on. Right. Fearful of things that we just don't have the information on. So we're like, I'm going to stay away from that because I heard bad things. Well, let's get the information, right? Like, let's figure it out. And then you can see if this is a good option for you, right? There's a question in the chat that said, even if medical bills are in collections. So talk a little bit about that, right? If things are already in collections, how does that fare?
Yeah, see, that's the beauty of bankruptcy. And bankruptcy is available to you. You don't have to be behind on your debt. But let's talk then about what that's going to mean for you, because there are two types of bankruptcy. There's two very specific kinds of bankruptcy that regular consumers, people like you and I, and people that are watching, would file if they were struggling financially. And again, we're talking about that kind of debt that's credit cards, medical bills, any kind of bank loans, payday loans, lawsuits, debt collectors, that kind of stuff. That stuff collectively is what would go away in bankruptcy. And so if you've got unmanageable debt in that category, and you don't have any way to tighten your belt, get rid of all of the discretionary spending, bring in the side hustles. If doing that's not going to work for you, then you need an extraordinary solution. Then whatever solution you're thinking of is probably not going to work. I've been doing this 30 years. There's only a couple of ways to manage this kind of debt. Okay. Let's pretend you have $30,000 in credit card debt, credit cards and medical bills combined. Well, now and you don't have a way to get this all paid off in 3 years or less without borrowing any more money or going to a debt settlement company. Well, you're going to talk to a bankruptcy lawyer at that point, because you've listened to me, and you're going to take advantage of a free consult, because all bankruptcy lawyers pretty much give free consults. And that's really my point in life, is to try to get to people and say, listen, you're going to get better information from a lawyer who knows what they're doing than from your bank manager or from the debt settlement guy that you called, because you saw an ad in the middle of the day while watching NASCAR, right? I mean, that's not how you pick who's going to help you. You have to go out and seek information and then bring it back. So you've listened to me, you've got $30,000 in credit card bills. Well, now you're going to come to me, and I'm going to tell you there's going to be two options. The first option is going to be a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and that's the easy one. That's the one everybody would want to be in. Please hear me when I say that. But a Chapter 7 bankruptcy is going to allow you to just walk away from that type of debt, the credit cards, the medical bills, the loans, that unsecured debt will allow you to walk away from it, but you have to be below a certain income. Your household has to be below an income threshold in order for you to qualify to file the easy Chapter 7. So if you don't qualify for the easy Chapter 7, then that means that you have too much income. You're making more money than the federal government says you can make and still file a 7. And
what is that number?
Yeah, let me give you some perspective. You put up the numbers earlier tonight, what a family of 4 has to have to live comfortably. And Ohio was 209,000. The threshold for bankruptcy is 114,000 for a family of 4 in Ohio. So if you're a family of 4 and you're under 114,000, you're probably on its face going to qualify to file a 7. And so in Ohio, and it's going to be different where you're at, in Ohio, a single person is 61,000, 2 people is 77,000. I think 3 people is 94 to 97, because we just changed our numbers, and it goes up from there. But those are generally the numbers you can expect. If you are if you're a single person in Ohio and you make more than $61,000 a year, even if you have $30,000 in credit card, $50,000, $100,000, doesn't matter. If you're over that income limit, you now have to look at the other kind of bankruptcy, which is called a Chapter 13. And a Chapter 13 requires you to pay back some money, maybe all, depending on what you can afford. So you can see that if you're in Ohio and you make $55,000 a year, you'd qualify for 7 if you're single. But if you're in Ohio and you make $70,000 a year, you're probably not going to qualify, because our number is 61,000. So if you're single in Ohio and you make $70,000 a year, you're going to be paying an amount. All right. Just pick an amount. But if you're single in Ohio and you make $100,000 a year, you're going to probably pay three or 4 times what the other person pays, because it's all based on how much more you make over that limit as referenced with your expenses. So your actual mortgage comes into play, your actual car payments come into play. If you have children in private school, those expenses. So it's very unique what you end up doing. But all along the way, you only have to pay in a Chapter 13 that which you can afford to pay after your mortgage and all these things are paid. And a Chapter 13 will only last 5 years no matter what. So even if you are in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, you make $70,000 a year in Ohio. You can't file a 7. You make 70 grand. Let's say you can only pay $500 a month to your Chapter 13 plan. That's what you can afford according to the numbers. Let's say you owe $100,000, right? $500 a month is $30,000 over 5 years. So if you are compliant and for 5 years you are in the program and you pay that amount, right? And at the end of 5 years, everything else goes away. So in a Chapter 13, the most amount of time you'll be in debt is 5 years. You will never be in debt more than 5 years, no matter what life looks like for you. And that is an end date and the beginning to your life. So you're either going to be able to do a quick Chapter 7, or you're going to be in a Chapter 13 that's going to take time. But at the end, all the debt is gone. And by debt, I mean that unsecured debt. That's the difference between that's the primary difference between the two. There are some other differences, but that's the primary difference.
That's huge. And again, it's case by in the state that you live in.
In the state that you live in, the numbers are guided by the state that you live in. And it is important to say that there's a second reason why somebody would not file a Chapter 7, rather they would file a 13. Let's pretend you do pass the income test. Let's pretend you're a single person in Ohio and you make less than $61,000. You have $100,000 in medical bills. You come to me. Well, the next thing I have to do, because a Chapter 7 is called a liquidation, and this is where people have an idea that stuff gets taken away. If every state has a list of what they'll protect. So in Ohio, we can protect out equity in a home, a lot of it. We can protect out $161,000 per person. So my husband and I could have a $322,000 house that had no mortgage on it. And if we made under $77,000 a year, we could file a Chapter 7 and keep our house. And that's why understanding that's important, why you would never hit your home equity line of credit before you talk to a bankruptcy lawyer, right? Because we might be able to protect it. But Ohio's got a nice exemption. Illinois, for example, does not have a nice exemption for a home. So in Illinois, if you have $100,000 in debt and you make less than the limit, you still might not be able to file Chapter 7, because if you did, your house would be at risk. So a Chapter 13 is for people who have too much equity in a house or something that they would otherwise lose. They can go into a 13 to start paying some of the debt to keep the home. So the Chapter 13 allows you to keep your home, and or it's for people who make too much. And that's really how it works. People don't lose anything, because if you talk to a lawyer and realize your house is too valuable, then you don't file that. We look at your other options. So that's kind of where a lot of those myths come from.
No, that's really good. With that Chapter 13, you said if you get locked into a payment, does that ever change? Like, let's say year 3, you make more money or something changes, can they increase that amount?
Absolutely, because the theory is anything above your expenses should be going to your creditors, but you can't pay more than the total amount that you owe them. So it's never going to go over 100%, right? But yes, it can go up, but that also means that your expenses are going down or your income is going up. You can also, along the way, modify the plan. Did you just lose your overtime? Is your income going down? Did your spouse just have a baby and now the whole finances have changed? You get to come in and you can stop and you can do a modification. I mean, all things are possible, and understanding that the whole point of this is bankruptcy is designed to protect you and I from the creditors. That's the point. The purpose of a Chapter 13 bankruptcy and why it's so much safer than debt settlement is because there is a judge forcing your creditors to all stay away from you and to leave your house and your stuff alone while you're doing this. And those are powers that debt settlement companies don't have. And nobody can force your credit card company to take less than what you owe, except for a judge. And so in a bankruptcy process, it's mandatory. When you're in a debt settlement process, it's optional on behalf of the creditors. And most of the time, we are not informed that all of our creditors are not quite on board with this plan. And that's how people end up coming to me. They end up paying in a debt settlement plan, but then get sued by a creditor, and we have to file anyway. So I'm not a big fan of debt settlement companies. I do believe that bankruptcy is safer, and that you should find out your options first in that lane before you take out the home equity line of credit, or before you borrow from your 401k, or before you try debt settlement, because those are all less safe options than bankruptcy in its purest form.
That's huge. I was going to ask you to touch on the debt consolidation side versus bankruptcy.
Yeah.
That has been a side that we've gone down, or we've recommended, and it's not for everyone. And obviously, you get credit.
Yeah.
But from your
It's
side,
got its time and its place. But I think the part that most people don't understand is that the more creditors you have, the more complex your finances are, the more difficult it is to have a successful debt consolidation, debt plan. And again, you have to understand that, a lot of debt settlement programs these days are bait and switch. They turn into high interest compounding daily daily APR loans. That's kind of a new twist in the last year. That's kind of been a big thing. So they're just substantially more unsafe. I really honestly believe, and let's just be honest here, Chris. If you have anybody here with $30,000 in credit card debt, there are only a handful of ways to manage it. You either budget, which is what I recommend first and foremost. The next option is going to be to borrow money from some source. It's either going to be a consolidation loan, or it's going to be a home equity line of credit, or it's going to be a 401k loan, right? It's going to really be one of those three things for the most part. And a consolidation loan, first off, we don't give alcohol to alcoholics. So if you're struggling with debt, probably the last thing you need is just another debt, because this is still daily compounding interest. So we don't necessarily think it's the best for you to get back into more debt if this is unmanageable. Remember, it's unmanageable. You can't budget your way out. So you're going to borrow either a consolidation loan, which is probably not what you need, or you're going to go to your home equity, or you're going to go to your retirement. And again, your retirement, all ERISA qualified retirement plans are 100% protected in bankruptcy. So you should never be taking from that to pay unsecured debt that's unmanageable, that you don't have a plan for, right?
Across all states.
Across all states. It is a federal exemption, 100% ERISA qualified plans everywhere, from coast to coast, everywhere. So that is number one. Everybody dealing with money needs to understand that, so they can advise their clients better. But number two, when we're dealing with that kind of debt, you're either going to budget, like I think you should, or you're going to borrow money. I don't think you should borrow money from any of those three sources. Number three, you're going to go to a debt consolidator, right? Number four is you're going to hope to win money. You're going to win the lottery. Number five, maybe your plan is to inherit money, right? And usually it's dying and then the bankruptcy lawyer. But those are the only ways to deal with debt. It's you budget, you borrow more money, you move the pieces around on the chess game, right? You just keep moving them around, or you go with a debt consolidator. And a Chapter 13 bankruptcy is safer and healthier than a debt consolidator any day. So that's why bankruptcy has to be the second thing you look at. And again, this is unmanageable debt you don't have a plan for in 3 years or less. That's my shtick. And that's what I was in the New York Times talking about, which is really this new kind of theory. We cannot sit in this debt for very long. It's dangerous.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that saying, right? You don't give alcohol to alcoholics. We say
Right.
it similarly, but we just say, right, you don't want the rule of thumb, you don't want to take out debt to pay off debt. Like if you're
Right.
already in a bunch of debt, why take on more debt? Just, and most people think that that's smart, right? Like in there, this is why we coach people like just talk to a
Yeah.
financial professional,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes the way you're thinking about it isn't necessarily going to be the best way. And that's something people go to a lot.
And that's really the entire crux of my platform. My entire platform, and the reason why I go out and I spend my time, talking to people for free and just trying to put stuff out there is because shame lives in darkness. And if we are shameful about about our debt, and most people are very ashamed to be in debt. And so when we're ashamed of the debt, when we're ashamed of anything, we don't open up the windows and let the light in and ask that we don't sing from the windows asking for information and looking with our eyes wide open and our minds open. The more scared and ashamed we are, the more we close down, and we start to keep circling through those things in our mind that we think are going to work. You keep borrowing more money, and it's a payday loan, it's a consolidation loan, and you're going around and around the drain and never realizing that the one thing you're missing is the ability to kind of give yourself some grace and talk to somebody about something that you might think is scary, because it's just not as scary as people think it is, and it's truly a bridge to getting to the other side so they can do the things that you want them to do. You can't do these things when you have $50,000 in medical bills to the Cleveland Clinic. We can't ever start a business, right? And it doesn't matter how you got here. Bankruptcies for you, whether you are a gambler and a ding dong, a failed business, it doesn't matter what happened. Bankruptcy is the great equalizer, and you're allowed to want to have a good life again. And bankruptcy can oftentimes flip it all around for you.
That's huge. That's huge. I see a couple questions in the chat. Again, student loans fall under primary, or
they're under the student loans. I call them priority debt. As of now, they're largely non-dischargeable, and they were a little bit easier to discharge over the last year or two because Biden had put out an executive order. What he had actually done is he had instructed the Department of Justice to streamline a process that was already in place. We already have a process to deal with student loans. The problem is most people don't qualify for it. You have to pretty much be disabled and unable to ever return back into a working environment that will pay you enough money to pay off your loans. So most people are not in that category. They became a little bit easier because the Department of Justice was told to streamline the process that would approve those people that already meet the parameters. That's going to go away. And I really don't think moving forward, we're going to see any student loan changes or relief or anything in that lane moving forward, at least for the next few years. So I think it's going to be even more important to look at this debt that we can get rid of so that you're going to be able to focus on the things we can't get rid of.
That's good. That's good. On the Chapter 13 side of things, do they consider rent an expense as well, or is it just mortgage?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh, no. Yeah, the way these numbers are. So when I say like this state of Ohio, if you're a single person, 61,000 is the number. And that 61,000 is actually made up of all of the things the federal government understands you need: a car payment, a place to live, utilities, food, right? And that it's made up of the national standard, or the standards for your region on those. Every expense you have that's different can offset it, right? So if the standard is $900 for rent or mortgage, and you pay $1,200, you're allowed to take that extra $300. So it's why it's so important to talk to a lawyer. Chapter 13s are very complicated because they are unique to the individual person, their debt, their expenses, and their state, right? So somebody, this person who has 2 kids and a husband and has XYZ dollars, next door neighbor their Chapter 13 would look wildly different depending on their different obligations and what they're already obligated on. So it takes into consideration all of those things.
Got it. Is there a certain amount of debt to have to file
Yeah.
bankruptcy?
That's a great question. My number, the number I will always throw out there, will sound very low to some people. Okay. And I want to make sure everybody understands that debt is relative, right? The threshold number tends to be about $10,000 in general unsecured non-priority debt. But remember, it's that category of debt that you don't have a plan to get out of in 3 years or less. I have filed bankruptcy for people with $7,000 in debt before. And that was a young woman who was homeless, living in a homeless shelter, who had had the misfortune of being in a fender bender 3 days after she turned 18. And she was unaware that her parents had cut her off of the insurance. So she didn't have insurance, and it wasn't a lot of money. It was like $2,000 worth of damage. But in Ohio, the insurance company can freeze your license if they have to pay on your behalf if you didn't have insurance. So her license had been frozen for several years, and she was just simply unable to do anything. And that $2,000 had grown to $7,000. And we filed because it got rid of the $7,000 in debt, but also reinstated her license. So for her, $7,000 was worth it. $10,000, $11,000, $12,000 is worth it to somebody who's on social security making $980 a month. If they have overwhelming debt, medical bills, that type of stuff, sometimes it is absolutely worth it for them. It's not worth it for me. And I know you wouldn't file for 10 grand, but it is a relative statement. Think about if your total income was 20 grand and you owed 10, that's a lot of money to you. If your income is 100,000, you owe 50. I mean, it's relative, right? So it's $10,000 only because there is an expense, costs money to file bankruptcy, and there has to be a cost benefit analysis.
Sure, that makes sense. That makes sense. In that same example, for the young lady that was homeless, or somebody that really hasn't accumulated a bunch, right? They don't have a car yet, they don't have a home yet. What's the downside? Like, we've always heard, right? Well, this is
There's
ruin your
none.
credit.
There's none. If you qualify for a Chapter 7 in your state and you don't have a house or you don't have much of anything, you're ideal. And it's the perfect time to file, because the problem is a lot of people fall on hard times, struggle, and then don't come to a lawyer until they've actually got a job again. And now they're like, how do I fix all of this? And the answer was, well, now you got a job and you don't qualify for the 7. So the irony is that the best time to file bankruptcy is really when your income's at its lowest, when you're unemployed, or when you're at that low point in your life. You want to run to a bankruptcy lawyer right then. You don't want to wait, because it will help you turn stuff around. And when you do turn things around, you want to be ready to catch all the great things that are coming your way, right?
Absolutely. Man, this was really good. I'm gonna wrap this up with one final question, because you let me know this, I'll let everyone know, right? Your son is at Ohio State, right?
Yeah.
Or no, the university, right? Is it
Ohio
State?
University, Ohio State University. Yep.
Gotcha.
OSU.
Ohio
Yep.
State,
He's a Buckeye.
right? He's a Buckeye, and they're playing right now in the national championship, and I want you to go and do that. But this has been awesome information. Last question for you is really like, if someone needs to reach out, do you encourage them to reach out to someone like you? Obviously, if you're in Ohio, right? Like, can you get them in touch with other states? Should they look up a certain bankruptcy attorney in their state? How would they go about starting the process?
That's a really good question. I appreciate that, because that's kind of what I do. So when I started my social media accounts, I was actually overwhelmed with people who wanted me to help them in all the different states. And I'm only licensed in Ohio. And quite frankly, I'm very, very busy up here. So what I did was I built a network of lawyers, and most of them come from the National Association of Consumer Bankruptcy Attorneys. But I built a network of lawyers, and you can go to my website, theladylikelawyer.com, You can go to my profile on any of my socials, and the website is in there. If you follow it through, my team will go ahead and pair you with a bankruptcy lawyer in your area, in your zip code, who offers free consultations. And that's really my whole point of view, right? I built this network because I walk the walk and I talk the talk. I think you should talk to a bankruptcy lawyer if you have more than $10,000 in unsecured debt with no plans to pay it off in 3 years or less. And I think you should do it because it's free, because you'll get a lot of information that you won't get anywhere else. And so I've created a way for you to access that because I've walked the walk and talked the talk. So there you
Absolutely.
go. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Absolutely.
you for putting that up. Yeah.
Absolutely. The pleasure was ours. I appreciate you taking this time out tonight to really educate people. Again, we love connecting with people that are on a crusade and on a mission, and just to give people the information that they need to really take their financial life to where they want it to go. And Adrienne, you're doing an amazing job. Even outside of this, I will let you know, right? Like, I know you've had some personal things, right? Some personal tragedies and things happen. So kudos to you for continuing to, right, do what God has called you to do, or right, be on this mission to be able to help people, because debt is really hurting a lot of people, and you're coming through and giving people the resources. So we definitely appreciate you taking the time. Anything that you need in the future, we're always here to be able to support you. And then we'll make sure everyone that's listening, go follow her, right? Go check out all her socials. We dropped all the information with the website here in the chat. And hopefully they get a chance to get in touch with you soon. Okay.
Thank you, Chris. You're doing great work. I really appreciate you. And to everybody who's here, keep on following this guy. He's got a lot of stuff to teach you. And I appreciate that you guys stuck around for my presentation tonight. So go Bucks. Go Buckeyes. I have no idea what the score is, so don't anyone tell me. I'm heading downstairs now.
Go watch it. Thanks for taking the time.
Take care. Bye, Chris. Bye,
right.
everyone.
Awesome. Good stuff, y'all. So again, man, we just want to get y'all the information. We want to get y'all the information. You don't know if you don't know what you don't know, right? And we don't often get an education around things like bankruptcy. We hear that, oh, this isn't the right thing to do, or, oh, it's going to mobilize you forever. Well, we brought on someone that's been in the space for going on 30 years, and she says different. This is why getting information financially, getting the proper financial information is so important to you doing well with money. You finding the right people, and hopefully we can be a resource for you to constantly give you the information that you need to make the best financial decisions. But in 2025, ladies and gentlemen, we can't go another year doing the same things that we've been doing and expecting different results. We can't go another year being scared to ask questions. She said something about, right, shame lives in darkness. That's huge, right? Because we have a lot of shame around our money, a lot of, right, guilt around our money, all those things. And so if we just turn on the light to it, turn on the spotlight a bit more, ladies and gentlemen, that's when we can really get some breakthroughs for you in your financial life. All right. So go follow her. Again, the reason why we brought her on is because she's definitely a resource. She jumps on. We've done a bunch of communicating with her back and forth, and maybe this won't be the last time that we have her on, or maybe we do some collabing over time. But either way, now you know what a bankruptcy attorney does, and maybe you reach out to her if this is for you, or maybe you know someone and it's just like, hey, maybe you should just set up time, have a quick call with her, and see where that goes. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, we're here to make sure you're building your financial foundation. All right. So those are the extreme cases. She talked about $10,000 or more in debt. So, and again, debt is relative. Like she said, $10,000 for someone that only makes $30,000 might be the right idea, right? $10,000 for someone that makes $200,000, it might not be time to file bankruptcy. So everything is going to be relative. Okay. But if you are under any of those, right? I wanted to show you the extreme side. I want to show you the side of like, man, you're drowning in this stuff and you don't know how to get over it. Okay, this could be an option for you. Here's the other side though. If you just have minimal amounts of debt, maybe you're not at the $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 of debt. Maybe you got $6,000 of credit card debt, right? Maybe you just got a little bit of debt that like you're trying to manage, but you keep getting back into debt. Right? Debt is debt. Consumer debt is consumer debt. Remember, there's good debt and there's bad debt. Bad debt is debt that takes money out of your pocket constantly. So your credit cards, if you're paying interest on your credit cards, if you're not paying the balance off every single month, well, that's taking money out of your pocket. All the loans, the payday loans, the advanced loans, all that stuff, like it's taking money out of your pocket. Good debt is something that brings you more money, right? So she might talk about filing bankruptcy so we can get to the place to start building wealth. But really, it's a place of, hey, if we are going to borrow some money to start this business, we know that that $100,000 that we borrow, that we go into debt, is going into a business that will generate us $500,000 in income. That is good debt. We're going to take on a little bit so that we can make more and have better cash flow, make more money. That is the term of good debt. But for most people, we talked about that consumer debt side. They have bad debt, car loans, credit cards, personal loans, medical bills, all those things. Got an option if it's over 10,000. If it's under 10,000, we give you an option too. You got to work yourself out of it. She said, hey, first step is you got to budget your way out of this thing. Most people can budget their way out of it. And she said within 3 years. So that gives you a window of time. Don't just jump straight into, okay, let me just settle all this and file bankruptcy. Is there a way we can work through this? Is there a way we can do the hard work? Can we lower our expenses? Can we raise our income? Can we make more money? Can we start a side business? Can we do something that increases our discretionary income where we can throw more money towards our debt and get ourselves out of it? If so, then there's strategies that we're going to use. Most people, if you have, let's say, 3 or 4 credit cards, most people try to pay a little bit over the minimum to all the cards, don't we? We try to pay a little bit over the minimum. Okay, I know this minimum is $75. I'm going to pay $80. And then this minimum is $28. I'm going to pay $40. And then this minimum is $30. I'm going to pay $40. And we pay like $10, $20 over all the minimums and think that that's the way that we get out of debt. That's not the way you get out of debt when you have small amounts. Here's the way that you do it. It's called a debt snowball or a debt avalanche. One of those two things. It's either going to be we're going to attack the highest balance debts first, or we're going to attack the lowest interest. I should have put highest interest, not lowest interest. It's the high. So it's the opposite of this. It's the highest interest and the lowest balance, right? So it's the lowest balance first, or the highest interest first. That's debt snowball versus debt avalanche. So you're going to take the card that has the lowest balance, and we're going to pay that thing off quickly, or we're going to attack the one that's 32% interest, and you're going to wind up paying that one first. But here's what you got to know before you figure out what strategy you're going to use. These are the 5 things you got to know. You got to know the name of your creditor. So who do you owe? Is it Capital One? Is it Discover? Is it your Walmart card, your Amazon card? I don't know. The name of your creditor. You got to know the interest rate you're being charged. A lot of times we miss this. This is for everything that you are borrowing. You should know the interest rate on your mortgage. You should know the interest rate on your car loan. You should know the interest rate on your credit cards. You should know the interest rate on any store cards or any other loans you get. Like you have to, the interest rate is almost the most important part. Sometimes we don't understand compound interest. We don't understand even how that works. So we might not look at that number. And these credit card companies, in all honesty, make it really difficult for you to find what the interest rate is on some of these. But you got to know that number. You got to know how much you're being charged to borrow this money. You need to know the exact balance on your cards or on whatever it is that you're trying to pay off. You got to know the exact balance. You got to know the credit limit or the starting balance, right? If you have a loan, you took out a car loan, well, how much did you start? How much was the starting balance? And then how much do you owe now? Same thing on a credit card. What's the credit limit? Are you over the limit? Are you way under? Do you got room? So you want to know the credit limit. And then you got to know the minimum payments. What are the minimum payments? How much is just minimally, what is it that you owe to that debt? Once you know those 5 things, then we can create a strategy, either debt snowball or debt avalanche. Again, we're going to take the lowest balance card or we're going to take the highest interest card. And what we're going to do is we're going to just pay the minimum payments to all the other cards. And we're going to attack one card and throw as much as our budget can handle to that one card.
That's the strategy. So imagine you have 4 credit cards, okay? You have 4 different credit cards. Well, one of those cards that is the lowest balance, let's say it's only $500, that's the balance on that card. All the rest of the balances are $1,000, $2,000, $4,000. You're going to just pay the minimum payment on the $1,000, the $2,000, and the $4,000 card. You're just going to pay minimum. If it says, $48, you're just paying $48, not $50, not $55, not $70, like just whatever the minimum is. And then that $500 card, that's the lowest balance, you're going to pay everything that your budget can handle to that one card. If that means you're making a few multiple payments throughout the month, fine, but you are doing extra to that one card and nothing else. Once that card is paid off, we take exactly how much we were paying to that one card and we roll it into the next card. So let's say you pay off the $500 card, now you're going to attack the $1,000 card. So whatever the minimum payment was on the $1,000 card, plus whatever you were paying to the $500 card, all of that goes to the $1,000 card, and then you just pay the minimum payment on the $2,000 and the $4,000 one until that one's paid off. Rinse and repeat. Pay that card off, take everything you were paying to that card, throw it to the next card. Minimum payment to the other one, rinse and repeat. That is the strategy of how you would get yourself strategically out of debt. Just like Adrienne said, if you can draw this up in a 3-year window, which most people, if you're under $10,000 in debt, most people can get out of debt within 3 years if you follow this strategy. And what I said earlier, we're not spending more than we make. Our cash flow is in order. Again, something really, really key. Adrienne said, right? Like we're not going to take out more debt to pay off debt if every month we're getting in more debt. Many of our problems is just we just have cash flow issues. We just don't make enough money, or our expenses are way too high and we don't know where all of our money's going. So if that's the trend, if every month you make $7,000 but you spend $9,000 every month, then we can't even get out of debt because you're going to keep getting into debt. So that's why we start with cash flow. The number one driver in your financial life is being able to improve the discretionary income, the difference between what comes in and what goes out. That's the number one driver. The way we get to debt is because we've had a habit outside of the circumstances, right? She gave some ideas, you get in a car wreck or something like that happens. Outside of that, the reason why people get into debt is because over an extended period of time, you've spent more than you made every month. Over an extended period of time, your expenses were more than your income. That's how we get into debt. Until we fix that, where we can say, okay, now our income, right, is more than what we're spending, then we have the ability to really work ourselves out of debt. If we can't get to the budgeting side, if we really can't do that, then that's where we have Adrienne. Maybe it does make sense for you to go that direction and look at bankruptcy. But again, these are some strategies for you when it comes to debt snowball, debt avalanche for people that have a little bit less debt, but you still got to get yourself out of debt so we can start doing some of the other things in our financial life. All right. Questions. We gave a bunch of info tonight, and this is just day one of the boot camp, y'all. This is just day one. We got 2 more nights of this. We got 2 more nights. We're going to really be able to dive into so many more things. Tonight, we're just talking about your cash flow and your debt. But these are 2 drivers, right? A lot of people are in debt. A lot of people are in debt. And a lot of people need to make more money or increase their cash flow. This is why we did this on night number 1, because this is incredibly important where most people are. Got to learn to earn it. Got to learn to save it. Then you got to learn to invest it. If we've gotten ourselves into consumer debt, we got to work ourselves out of it. We got to work ourselves out of that consumer debt, all right? Some resources for you. We have a financial tracking sheet. I'm going to show you this. Some of you that have been clients with us or have allowed us to coach you through some of these cash flow things, this might look familiar. We have a financial tracking sheet that we give to you for free, complimentary. We don't charge you for any of this stuff, ladies and gentlemen. This is just the right resources. There's no need to keep this information from you. This is going to help you. Remember, I said budgeting is your second step, tracking is your first step. So this is a sheet that will help you start to track all of your expenses, fixed and variable. The top part is going to be all of your bills. And this is basically an Excel spreadsheet that you can go in and customize. We just give you the template. You go in and customize it yourself and change it to the categories that fit your financial habits. But that top part is your bills. That blue part or bluish gray part, those are your bills, fixed expenses. All the other colors, the red, the green, the yellow, those are your variables. Those are the things that fluctuate every single month. Your gas, your dining out, your groceries, your miscellaneous food, your shopping, your money you give to family, your personal care, your entertainment, those things fluctuate. But just like I said, you have to go back and track these numbers for the past few months just to see what your habits are so you can have a proper budget coming in 2025. Just so that in February, you have more confidence of where your money will go because you know where your money has gone. That's the importance of this financial tracking sheet. We get it to you. We're going to get it to you for free. All you got to do is either message us or message the person that invited you to this call, and you're going to be able to get it. If you're watching us on Facebook, right, go ahead and drop the word tracking in the chat. If you're over on Facebook, drop tracking in the chat, and we'll make sure we get it to you. For anyone else that's here in the Zoom, reach out to me or reach out to Zara or the person that invited you on, and we'll make sure that you get that tracking sheet. We also want to give you a little education with it because sometimes we take these resources down and we don't do anything with it, right? We have it, and then we'll check back in with you in a month and we're like, hey, did you get that tracking done? And it's like, oh, I didn't have time, or oh, I forgot, or I wasn't sure how to. So that's why if you want that tracking sheet, we'll give it to you complimentary, and we want to make sure that we give you some instructions on how to really be successful with it. All right. The other two things that we have for resources, we have 2 ebooks on the stuff that we talked about tonight. So it's our cash flow ebook and then our debt ebook. Both of those we've written for some time, but again, they are a resource for you if you just needed a quick refresher on, hey, what should we be looking at when it comes to our cash flow? Hey, what should we be looking at when it comes to our debt? That debt ebook doesn't have any of the bankruptcy things that we just talked about tonight. Those are specific. Again, go seek out Adrienne, go to her website, go follow her on social. You'll be able to pick up all the resources that you need from her. But we wanted to make sure that you guys had this information from us tonight. So again, feel free to get the cash flow ebook and get the debt ebook. And then if you want to reach out and get the financial tracking sheet, that's on you guys as well. Again, for another announcement, I host a show called Biz Buzz Live. I do this every Friday at 10:30 a.m. We go live on LinkedIn and YouTube. This show is specifically to talk about cash flow. I open up the show every time saying things like, hey, the number one driver of your financial life is going to be your income. We don't have enough conversations around it. Inevitably, when I sit down with people and we're talking investments and savings and all the other things, insurance, all the things we're going to get into for this boot camp, inevitably it comes back to their cash flow. It comes back to what's coming in and what's going out. So I do this live streaming show where we talk about all the things around business and industry and entrepreneurship and ways for you to make more money. You can follow me over on LinkedIn or go to our United Agency YouTube channel. It's live every single Friday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Join us tomorrow night, ladies and gentlemen, day 2 of the boot camp. Again, we're doing this for 3 days. Day 2 of the boot camp is tomorrow night. Tomorrow, we're going over securing your legacy. What does that look like? We're going to talk about savings and investing, short, mid, long-term saving and investing strategies, life insurance stuff, retirement planning things. What's a tax deferred versus tax advantaged? Where should I be putting my money to make sure I'm securing my legacy? That's all the stuff we're going to go over tomorrow night for you. Again, just like today, feel free to invite a friend, invite a family member, share it with somebody on Facebook, share the Zoom link with them so they can jump in. I know tonight added a bunch of value for you. I know you learned something. That's always our goal, is to make sure you walk away with some added knowledge, some added value that you can then go apply in your financial life. If you have any questions or anything pops up, feel free to reach out to myself
my wife, or anyone that has invited you to this call, because at the end of the day, we're here to help you build your financial foundation. All right, y'all? Cool. Perfect. So proud of y'all for sticking around tonight, getting rid of the distractions, whatever was going on. I hope you took some notes and did some and got a bunch of value out of the stuff that we talked about tonight. We're going to jump right back on tomorrow night and do it all again. All right? All right, y'all. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll see you tomorrow night. Take care.
Welcome to United Agency.
To United Agency.
To United Agency.
To United Agency.
Welcome to United Agency.
Welcome to United Agency, a place where people can come in and build a life, a future, a vision for their family, a legacy. That's really what we represent here, is helping people build a legacy for their family, generational wealth, generational entrepreneur mindset.
In all honesty, this is about three things: helping families, building people, and a better life. That 5-year plan of making sure that you know exactly what it is you want to make happen, exactly what the plan is. Don't think so much about the how, just understand this is the vision.
Once we understand, and every leader kind of touched on this, is just understanding the time is now. With this time of the business, many people have been here 20, 30, 40 years. Like here at United Agency, we're going to be able to take off and do great things for the next decades to come.
There was a comp plan where when I bet on myself, I really won and made that money that I knew I deserved versus somebody putting a stipulation over my head.
What I did take away is just making sure that you're right for everybody else in your family. You just have to make sure you're right to make sure everybody else is right. And that was the biggest takeaway for sure.
Some of the benefits of being here is seeing what you can do to help grow your business, as well as what you can do to understand the business you're trying to grow.
The benefits of attending this event is learning from people that have made it and getting to shake hands with them, getting to know them. So sharing with us their strategy of reaching out to others.
And with that being said, welcome to United Agency!